Citizens Council and staff, and welcome to our City Council meeting for Monday, March 15th, 2021. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Guerra.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve our regular meeting of March 1st, 2021?
So move. Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That passes. And Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda revisions tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Number 14 on the resolution calendar contains a scrivener's error that incorrectly references a final plat, and it should be a resolution approving and accepting completion of the public improvements of Pheasant Hollow 7th Edition. The actual documents in the packet were correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. First, for our next section is going to be public forum. Speakers will have an opportunity of up to 5 minutes to talk on topics germane to city business. Does anyone from the public wish to speak in public forum tonight? Evening, Ms. Beach. Thank you for joining us again tonight.
I haven't joined you for a year. Haven't you been lucky? Is this okay? Am I all right?
We can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay. I want to have a discussion about First Street. And unless it's all been changed for a week, my discussion is the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on that street. Okay, so I'm going to read this because I want to get it all done. Okay. Come with me in the car starting at Franklin and First Street going east by the Washington Street corner. See a large traffic sign on the south side reading speed limit ahead, minimum 40 miles an hour. Then that continues on past Main Street entrance to a sign which is in the middle of the bridge. Okay. Then at the middle of the bridge, it says, it starts right at the barrier where you go on each side. The sign at the barrier says, speed limit less than 40 miles an hour minimum, all prohibited, are prohibited. So that means if you're going from New Hartford to Waterloo, you're going to be you have to go over 40 miles an hour. And what that does is take you right back right by Main Street, literally by it. Now, you're not supposed to start so soon, but I think if any of you have sat down a Cup of Joe's in their backyard or sat in the front, you'd know they start at the minute they see that sign. They put, the foot to the pedal or whatever. Okay, so now you've got them going 40 miles an hour. And you're going by Cup of Joe and the theater. And from there to the next one, which says, now you can't go under 40 miles an hour. There's no speed limit, literally. So you could go 100 from the barrier to the next sign. There is no speed limit, other than you can't go below 40 miles an hour. Okay. At the middle of the bridge, when you go up it, there is a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. And then you go to a 55-mile speed limit. And then you're on your way to Waterloo. You have this whole itinerary going across that bridge. Okay, now, you're on the road. There is no way to get off road. There is a gravel road that you can drive into on the way. You cannot get back to Cedar Falls. You have to go clear to the airport road. That's as soon as you can turn around to come back to Cedar Falls. And if you're coming back to Cedar Falls, you have to go 30 miles an hour through the 45 speed limit that you have to go on the other side. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if there is a turn in that road, but you can't turn there, it's for police to use or whatever. So you're going out to the airport, you can make a U-turn, you can come back to Cedar Falls and go down Main Street. You've passed it once. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure. I have a habit, or did have when we were traveling, if I saw a cute little town, I'd say, oh, let's turn in here, I want to go in here. You can't. You're already by Main Street. And there's no way to get in it. And I had visions of my husband saying, forget it, we're not doing that story. So what I'm saying is you've missed the whole shopping center of Cedar Falls. And I'm very interested, you're working on the other end, trying to beautify it, but you're keeping people out of the north end. Okay. What you're going by now are two historic buildings. You have the Cup of Joe, and you have the theater. And I've sat on the back porch at Cup of Joe's, Bob and I, and had coffee, and yelling at each other, how nice a day this is, whatever, because you can't hear anything. So if the truck's going by, they are going full speed ahead. My theory is that those big trucks that go through there at 40 miles an hour are eventually breaking those two buildings down. I think the sound barrier and all the shaking is the hardest thing to do on that corner. I think it's really difficult on those two ancient buildings. Now, let's talk about the corner.
And you're at your 5 minutes now, so.
Oh, I haven't even started. Oh, gosh. Can I go further?
Would council object to giving her additional 2 minutes?
Okay.
Yes,
I'll
please.
try, I'm trying to get you where they're. On that corner, they were painting white stripes. That was supposed to be helpful so you wouldn't go too fast. They also set the timing going across with your new little timing things. And that was supposed to help to get across. On that corner, you have a hotel, you have a theater, you have an old building with Cup of Joe, you have the theater right, you have the hotel right down the street. You have all these things in that area. And you're going to have, if what I understand is, eventually the big water thing in the Cedar River. So you have the most congested spot in town that you were letting people go 40 miles an hour through, and that's the place where most people are attempting to get over to the other side, to go to Big Woods, to go over and sit in the park. I think it is a dangerous, dangerous thing, and I think the only thing that I have been told is, oh, it's DOT. It's DOT, you can't fix it. I don't believe that. I think that DOT changed the end of Main Street, or First Street coming in for one of the big houses down there, and I think they altered it a little bit. I think the DOT would pay attention. I think your merchants are losing money. I think Cedar Falls is losing people coming through and enjoying this. So I wish somebody would delve into it a little bit further and go to DOT and say, where did it come from? Who put those signs up? Why? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rosemary. Okay, do we have other speakers for public comment tonight?
We have two in Zoom. Jim Skane.
Okay, so Mr. Skane, if you just give a name and address for the record, please, sir. The floor is yours.
Yes, 2215 Clay Street, Jim Skane. And I'm pleased that the speech had some extra time. It indicates some flexibility that has not been there before. But I really want to talk about several things. For example, I listened very carefully to the committee of the whole presentation, and there seemed to be some progress in restoring the mayor to the original power, but there was no mention about the agenda, because as it is now, the city administrator develops the agenda, and there's no input from anybody other than the city administrator. I think that that should be a function of the mayor in cooperation with the council to set the agenda. Also, on the situation, the presentation by Snyder about the reconstruction of Main Street, again, having the 3 roundabouts are going to be tremendously more expensive than if you keep the optimized lights, and reducing it to 3 lanes will again slow traffic. I've read many accounts of cities that have gone to 3 lanes, and it has been not a positive change. The roundabouts now at 3 places. A very dangerous place to put one is at 6th Street, because that's right by the library, and other and commercial places. And in that particular case, that does not give any leeway for pedestrians, despite what the Snyder people say. And also, the Snyder people have not been forthcoming as to how many accidents there actually have been at any of the intersections. I know that there was a problem at 18th and putting it together, and every roundabout costs more than 5 to 6 times what it would be to keep the lights. And as I said before, the 3-lane contributes to traffic congestion.
1 minute remaining, sir.
Beg pardon?
1 minute remaining, sir.
Okay. And as we look at the agenda for tonight, it's clearly the city administrator's agenda. And despite the fact that the council adopted Robert's Rules of Order version 12, it does not conform to anything like that. It's the way that it has been for many, many years now. So I would hope that before it gets before the council, that there are significant changes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Skane. Do we have any other speakers for public comment tonight? Or public forum?
Rick Sharp.
Okay, Rick Sharp, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hello, Rick Sharp, 1623 Burke Street. Just curious right now on the Zoom, are we not showing video today? Is it just audio only? Because I'm on the app and I don't have video, just audio.
So do you mean for yourself, seeing yourself on screen?
No, the whole meeting period, and it was like that at the tail end of the to me the whole meeting as well.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know. So you,
So,
are you,
all I'm seeing is the Cedar Falls logo is all I'm seeing.
okay, well, thank you. I'll,
No.
if Channel 15 crew can take a look into
Thank you.
that to resolve it.
Yeah, I believe it's on the Channel 15 feed.
So, and Councilmember Dunn, as you're looking at the screen, what are you seeing?
I can see everybody, but I do know, and I'm not the most techie person, like if you go up to the speaker view or you can put in gallery view, does that make a difference maybe? But I can see everyone.
Yeah, so, Mr. Sharp, did you get that for changing the gallery view potentially? Does that help?
We don't have that option on the iPad. I saw Miss Dunn's video feed, but I'm back to a black screen again. And I never had this problem in previous meetings.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it for staff to try to resolve that if there's a problem here on our end. We do have audio for the public, and Councilmember Dunn can see us. One of the important parts of parliamentary procedure is being able to see and hear the other members of the body. So since we can do that, I wouldn't call that a stoppable problem for the council meeting, but certainly, Mr. Sharp, we will try to resolve that. Did you have other comment that you would like to add in as well? I won't count that against your time.
No, thanks. Not today, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes, Councilor Harding.
Just wondered if you could shed some light on Mr. Skane's comment about the administrator controlling the agenda. Because in my experience, as I've watched it, the mayor has the say of what goes on the agenda, and council can override. Am I incorrect in that perception of the ordinance?
Yes, it wouldn't be appropriate to get into a debate or discussion about it for a public forum, but I can say the agenda has always come to me, the draft agenda on Friday morning. I review it. I check to not for content so much as just making sure that things are appropriate, that they're appearing on the agenda. I have removed items from time to time if I felt that it needed more deliberation between staff and me or more discussion from council. So I have full authority, and I've used it to set the agenda, and that's a very important part of the mayor's role.
Thanks.
So any other public comment for tonight or public forum item?
None in Zoom.
Okay, and I'm seeing none on the gallery, so with that, I will call public forum closed and move us over into special presentations. Tonight, we just have one, item 2. It's a proclamation recognizing March 22nd, 2021 as Meals for March Day. And I'm very happy to be joined by Elaine Bovey from the, the abbreviation, NEI 3A, is that correct? Or close? So the Area Agency on Aging. And Ms. Bevy reached out to me a few weeks ago, or I guess last week, to talk about March for Meals Day. And so we have a proclamation, and then Ms. Bevy will have the few moments on the discussion end on this at the end. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. It says, whereas on March 22nd, 1972, the Older Americans Act of 1965 was amended to establish a national nutrition program for seniors aged 60 and older. And whereas the March for Meals campaign was established in March 2002 to recognize the importance of the Older Americans Act's nutrition programs through meals served in senior centers and meals delivered to homes of elders, and to raise awareness about the problems of senior hunger and isolation. And whereas the Northeast Iowa Area Agency on Aging, NEI 3A, is a nonprofit serving under the Older Americans Act to provide services to older Americans that help them age in place with dignity and independence. And whereas the thousands of volunteers who deliver Meals on Wheels to homebound seniors here in Cedar Falls and beyond are the backbone of the program and are worthy of recognition as they provide nutritious meals and compassionate contact to seniors and others who would otherwise risk daily hunger and isolation. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim March 22nd, 2021 as March for Meals Day in Cedar Falls, and urge every citizen to honor our Meals on Wheels program, the seniors and caregivers they serve, and the volunteers who care for them to combat senior hunger and isolation, as well as to promote elder dignity and well-being. Signed this 12th day of March, 2021, Mayor Robert M. Green. So with that, I will turn it over to Elaine. If you would like to give a few comments tonight, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you for having me, everyone. I am with NEI3A as the Aging Specialist Nutrition in Cedar Falls, and also a volunteer coordinator for our home delivered meals, or as many people know it as Meals on Wheels.
And I would ask you just real quick, if you might be able to speak a little closer into the mic for us. We're having a hard time hearing you. And now not at all.
Oh, is this better?
That's a little better, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for having me. Our nation's older adult population is growing exceptionally, outpacing the resources available to serve vulnerable older adults and putting their health and well-being in jeopardy. Our Meals on Wheels programs, like NEI 3A's home delivered meals, effectively addresses challenges by promoting health and improving the quality of life for at-risk seniors. Through these programs, we have the opportunity to not only keep seniors healthy and independent at home where they want to be, but we also help them save billions in tax dollars by keeping them out of more costly healthcare alternatives. NEI 3A works with dedicated volunteers, transit agencies, local restaurants, and vendors, and we have delivered over 191,700 meals to older Iowans from July to December last year, and we have more than doubled the number of meals we delivered during the same time frame in 2019. And our volunteers deliver more than just a nutritious meal to homebound older adults. They also provide a vital lifeline and connection to the community, which are sometimes all it takes to keep these older adults at home and where they want to be. So, and any individuals looking for information about our programs can go to our website at nei3a.com .org, or can call 1-800-779-8707. And we just want to thank the City of Cedar Falls for making this proclamation for our March for Meals and recognizing this day, and we look forward to continuing to support Cedar Falls.
Thank you, Ms. Bovee. And are you looking for volunteers currently as drivers and deliverers?
Right now, we are only doing frozen meals, delivering frozen meals once a week to our consumers. And so right now, we do have enough volunteers helping us. But in the future, we normally do daily hot meals delivered Monday through Friday. And that is when we'll need a lot more volunteers coming up. And so we don't know that day right now when we'll go back to hot delivered meals, but in the future we would love to have more volunteers helping us deliver.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Bovee, for helping us learn more about this important program in our community. So that brings us over to item 3, special order of business. This is a public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 street construction project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
The motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. And do we have any written communications filed, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. That brings us to staff comments. Tonight, I believe it's Mr. Claypool joining us to talk about this project. The floor is yours, Mr. Claypool.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is on the 2021 street construction project. This project involves the reconstruction or restoration of 14 different portions of city streets here in Cedar Falls, totaling 2.63 miles. The typical recon work includes the removal and replacement of the pavement and storm sewer network, any necessary relocation or replacement of sanitary sewer or water main, and other items such as the replacement of driveway approaches, striping, signage, and other miscellaneous items to return the street into a better condition. The 4 streets on the list this year receiving a full reconstruction are Brandy Lynn Boulevard from the western cul-de-sac east of approximately 700 feet, McLean Drive from Orchard Drive north past the Maplewood Drive intersection, Olive Street from West 4th Street to West 3rd Street, and Washington Street from West 8th Street to West 6th Street. The remaining 10 streets are receiving an asphalt overlay as their form of restoration to help extend their service lives. The total estimated cost for this project is $4,345,000, and the project will be primarily funded through the local option sales tax, with minor funding from the Street Construction Fund, General Obligation Bond, Sanitary Sewer Rental Fund, and Cedar Falls Utilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claypool. I now go into public comments. So if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item, you can press *9 on your device, or excuse me, on your phone, or the raise hand icon on your device. Do we have any speakers for public comment tonight on this item?
Jim Skane?
Okay, Mr. Skane, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, on the cost, it said it was $4 million and indicated where it's coming from. Why does the city, for funding the street program, have to resort to taking money from the Cedar Falls utilities?
So do I understand the question about, is it why the city is paying for this cost rather than Cedar Falls Utilities? Is that correct, Mr. Skane?
As one of the sources, local options, and then the last one he mentioned was Cedar Falls Utilities.
Yes, sir. Okay. So yes, sir, Mr. Claypool, would you be able to answer that for how the funding is broken out?
Yeah, any of the required water main work is funded exclusively through the Cedar Falls Utilities, since the water is their utility, while we cover this, the storm sewer as part of the city's main obligation, and then the Water Reclamation Division covers the the sanitary sewer portions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Claypool. Any other speakers for public comment?
Seeing none in Zoom.
Okay, and seeing none in the gallery. So I will consider the public hearing closed and move us over into the motion section. Before taking a motion, I do just want, for full disclosure, to let council and the public know, my house is on one of these streets that's being approved, and if I were on council, I would recuse myself from the vote, but if council doesn't object, I would like to, or I would still preside over the item. So any objections to that? Okay. So with that, is there a motion to, or is there a resolution approving and adopting the plans? Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And open it for council discussion. Seeing none and no questions, then it's been motioned and seconded, and this requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Mr. Claypool. The next item, number 4, is passing Ordinance 2987, amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to adaptive reuse of institutional buildings upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further council questions? And any from the public?
None in
Okay,
Zoom.
so motion and seconded, and this requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us to item 5, which is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a Sturgis Falls celebration agreement for use of city parks and services with Sturgis Falls Celebration Incorporated. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and seconded. Open it for council questions to start out with. And seeing none, then I'll open it to the public for comment. So Mr. Stoddard, I understand you would wish to speak tonight. And then I'll prep for anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item. You can press *9 or the raise hand icon. So Mr. Stoddard, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay.
And we do have your presentation, I understand, to
It is
look
up.
at us.
Okay.
So it's not up yet, but should see it momentarily.
Well, at the last, I'm Jay Stoddard, 228 Mary Hill Drive, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I'm sorry. Greetings, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. At the last council meeting, I had a PowerPoint showing the tens of thousands of dollars that Sturgis Falls has donated to the dozens of city projects, as well as the millions of dollars in economic development that Sturgis Falls brings into Cedar Falls during the Sturgis Falls celebration weekend. I'm now wanting to take the opportunity to talk about this year's Sturgis Falls celebration weekend and to clarify some issues. The Sturgis Falls Board of Directors welcomes other organizations offering new and different entertainment to help make the weekend better. The only issue that our board has had was how these organizations would contribute to the non-beer family events like the parade. We wanted to set up a formula like a % versus a flat fee so that there would always be a uniform and consistent way that these groups would contribute and support these family events. This was the main point of contention. In keeping with the Sturgis Falls goal of not charging admission or an application fee for entries like the parade, Sturgis Falls needs to have family events sponsored so that they can operate successfully as they have for over 45 years. The complexity of selling beer at Sturgis Falls is vastly simpler than putting on a non-beer family events like the parade, which takes a Herculean effort to pull off. The statements that council was being asked to pick winners and losers is just not accurate. We want the entire Sturgis Falls celebration, including family events, to be winners. The Sturgis Falls Board of Directors would like for all groups to work together as a unit so that Sturgis Falls can continue to offer a free celebration for all. A unified front serves Sturgis Falls and the city the best. Here are some slides showing some of the highlights that we're planning for this year's celebration in a PowerPoint put together by our board member Kim Manning and Jeremy Ott. Oh, okay, thank you.
And Denny, there we go, thank you.
Pardon me?
I just wanted to have it full screen since there's some detail on it.
See that big clown up there? Each year our board chooses a theme. This year it's Visions of Summer. And we do this every single year, and you've seen a lot of the artwork that we've have that's it's all over town. We also ask local artists to submit artwork that best exemplifies the theme. Kate Brennanhall was the winner and was awarded a stipend for her rendition. Public safety is a major concern of our board this year, and we will diligently be following the CDC guidelines during the Sturgis Falls weekend. Gateway Park and Overman Park social distancing plans that has been endorsed by the governor's office. And here's the map right here of Gateway Park. I don't know if I can have a arrow pointed on anything, but oh, there. Here's the Sturgis Falls Gateway stage. And over in this area here is where we have spools with umbrellas and a flat top. Now these are, Pete Downs calls these party pods. And there's a light going to be on the inside of them that you can turn on for, I guess, beer service. And over here we have all picnic tables that are spaced. All lines for beer will be spaced, and all these areas here will have squares where you can get 4 people in there so that they're spaced as well. Okay, here's Overman Park. This is a lot more complicated because the area is not as big. I'm not sure you're able to see, but there's white squares in there that represent a 6-foot by 6-foot area where you can get 4 family members or 4 people that have been vaccinated and are safe. And so you can get, you know, about 2,000, 3,000 people doing this particular method. I would hope that all other beer band organizations participating during the Sturgis Falls weekend would likewise have a social distancing plan in place. Probably the single most prestigious highlight of the Sturgis Falls celebration is having the United States Marine Corps Band perform. Every fall when I begin my quest for a Marine band to perform, I'm always nervous that I won't be able to get a Marine band to accept our invitation. I have been successful in getting a Marine band to play for over 25 years. No other community in the Midwest has even come close to this accomplishment. The Marines love coming to Cedar Falls, and they vie for the opportunity. They say it is the highlight of the year for them. For instance, the Albany Marine Band graced our stage for 8 years until the Marines started splitting up and consolidating the Marine bands. The Albany Marine Band was dispersed and therefore unable to attend. In a panic, I called the Marine Band office at the Pentagon requesting another Marine band. I was connected with Master Sergeant Michael Edmondson, whose name I recognized, and he recognized mine, for performing with the Albany Marine Band under Master Sergeant Matt Farquhar. Some of you may recognize Matt's name, which became infamous after his first encore. He announced without any prompting, and for our second encore, he said. He brought down the house. This year, I reached out to the 2nd Marine Band from Cherry Point, North Carolina, which were slated to come last year. I was connected with Master Sergeant Stephen Davis, whom I knew for coming here in 2007. The 2nd Marine Band will march in the parade, have a brass ensemble perform on the bandshell stage early Saturday afternoon, as well as perform a full concert at 7 p.m. Saturday. We will also have the 34th Army Marine Band, or Army Band, in the parade, and they will perform on the bandshell stage as well. Shannon Broca is the director in charge of the bandshell entertainment and is assisted by Director Greg Grover. There's in full dress, that's the Marine Band. There's the 34th Army Band. Okay, our gateway headliners are Pork Tornadoes Friday night. Arch Allies will play Saturday night. They were only doing Journey, Styx, and REO Speedwagon years ago, but now they've added Boston, Bon Jovi, and Def Leppard. So for those that are interested in that. Here's the Checker and the Blue Tones will headline on Sunday. And yes, the Bob Dorr and the Blue Band will be playing. They were our very first band to perform at Sturgis Falls for us. Here's an actual photo of Arch Allies performing on the Gateway Park stage a few years ago. You can see some of our tents in the background, all manufactured by Waterloo Tent and Shade by Pete Downs. He's a director in charge of signage, canopies, and tent setup. He also calls himself the Sturgis Falls Rush Chairman. Besides Pete donating his time, he has financially donated many dollars and items to Sturgis Falls. Here's an aerial shot of Gateway Park with some of the food vendors. Don Scher is the director in charge of our food and beverages. Also, you can see the beer tents and trailers. Chuck Frost is the director in charge of the beer in Gateway Park, and we rightly call him the Beer King. This is a diagram of the parade route. It starts at 8th and Clay and ends at 5th and Franklin. Rose Miller, the parade director, will be sending you all details on where you can get into your cars and be in the parade and line up. I will escort each of you from the car to the main reviewing stand. Here is a photo of a float with a class reunion writing on it. We have up to 12 class reunions that make Sturgis Falls their weekend get-together. And here's a float with showing the Cedar Falls Municipal Band with Dennis Downs. And here's a photo of Overman Park right before the Bill Riley Talent Search. You can see there's their table there. In the background, you can see the information booth where we sell memorabilia. And Laura Sweeney is our director that handles all that. This is a photo of chalk art. It's done in the Kids Way tent. Molly Kaler, the big top ringmaster, is the Kids Way tent director and organizes all this. Here's another big activity, face painting in the Kids Way tent. And this is a picture of Willie S. Wonderful and Dean Franzen, our magician and juggler. This is a Sunday shot of the Arts and Crafts Fair that is directed by Jill Thorpe on our board. Here's another photo of Dean Franzen right before his juggling act in the Kids Way tent. And our parents are sitting in bleachers in the background. The kids are sitting on interlocking foam pads that Molly Kaler secured funding for. And you can kind of see them, the pads right there. Okay, well, this is Sturgis Falls' answer to NASCAR. This is a Big Wheel 500 and is another photo in the Kids Way. I'll show you here of face painting. As you can easily see, the depth and breadth of the non-beer family events that are the very foundation of Sturgis Falls. Without these family events, this celebration would just be another beer band event. We also have a mile of parking off of Lincoln Street by Gateway Park. Many years ago, we realized trams would be a great asset. We arranged an agreement with the Blackhawk County Park Department to store the trams and be able to use them throughout the year, except during the Sturgis Falls weekend. The trams can transport up to 17 people from Gateway Park to Overman and back. There are also 6-seater golf carts that take people from parking areas to the carnival, the Gateway Large Shelter, as well as the Gateway Entertainment Area. Another important fact is that we pay numerous groups and organizations to perform all the necessary tasks and jobs to make the celebration happen. These groups include the Boy Scouts, the Salvation Army, numerous church groups, Dance Marathon, and other UNI student groups. If there are other groups that would like to earn money helping Sturgis Falls, please contact me or go to sturgisfalls.org. I want to repeat, no one on our board, including myself, is paid. We're all volunteers. I bring this up again since several council members thought that we were paid, and we're not. In closing, let's all work together collectively to keep the Midwest's largest free city celebration going for another 45 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stoddard. Before that, since we are in a public comment period, I'll open up for other public or other comments, and then council can have additional questions as well. So are there other speakers for public comment tonight?
Yeah, we have one in the gallery here.
Okay, yes, please, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Steve Hewsome. I live at 4909 Quisada Avenue in Cedar Falls. And outside of maybe Jay, there's nobody in this room that would like to see a more successful Sturgis Falls celebration this year than I would. Everybody on our committee wants to see a very successful Sturgis Falls. I've lived here my entire life and love the event and plan on participating again this year, given the opportunity if we have it. So, but I'm also here tonight to talk about the agreement, and I'm representing the North Shore Boat Club, and I'm a past president of that organization. I'm also on the committee that organizes the annual firefighters dance on Friday night. And I guess first of all, we would ask the city to not approve this agreement because it does grant exclusivity for the Sturgis Falls Commission or committee to siphon funds off of the Fireman's Dance event. We don't think it's good practice or policy for the city of Cedar Falls to be entering into any kind of exclusive arrangement that gives one organization control and funding off of another organization's work. Secondly, I think that we would like to, I think at minimum, amend this agreement so that it would strike any language that pertains to Island Park Beach House, or the Fireman's Dance in the paragraph 6L that's referenced in that agreement. So I would respectfully ask you to consider that and let us have our event and have the autonomy to run our event as we find necessary without all of the restrictions and covenants that are placed under this agreement like it has been. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hewsome. Any other speakers for public comment tonight?
Number ending 0945.
Okay, so 0945, just name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
You bet. Bob Seymour, 2710 Country Meadow Lane in Cedar Falls. And first off, I'd like to assure the council that absolutely no one questions how fantastic the Albany Marine Band is, how great the jugglers are, or any of the other entertainment that Sturgis has. But the reality is that really has nothing to do with the agreement that's before City Council tonight. And that's here, the reason why I want to speak here for a few minutes if I can. I think Council will remember at the last City Council meeting, there was probably a good 30-minute discussion regarding any type of agreement between the city and Sturgis Falls. And one underlying theme kept coming out during that City Council discussion, and that was, why is the city playing favorite towards one entity over any other? Yet, here again tonight, we have an agreement that not only provides favoritism to Sturgis, whom the city has a direct financial interest in, but it again provides exclusivity over the use of parks, public properties, and other items, the benefits of which are not provided to any of these other entities. And all any of these organizations and the public wants in Cedar Falls is a level playing field in which all of these organizations that are holding events are treated equally and in a non-discriminatory manner by the city. Sturgis doesn't have a right to an exclusive agreement with the city and should be bound by the same processes and approvals that are in place for all other organizations. I'm not aware of any provisions in the City Code of Ordinances, especially Section 17.210, allowing a single party to reserve for its exclusive use public parks, shelters, bathrooms, or any other public property, including streets, sidewalks, and parking lots and alleys. Reserving an entire area of the city for the exclusive use of one entity excludes all other persons or businesses from reserving such property, including that unused property that no one will be using during the festival. So again, we believe Sturgis should have to apply for the appropriate park use and event permit just like every other organization, and this will ensure that it is an equitable and non-discriminatory process for all of those entities. And I would start by asking the City Council again one basic question tonight. Would City Council approve this same exact agreement tonight with any other entity, whether it's Cedar Basin Music, Live to Nine, or the North Shore Boat Club? And if that answer is no, then it should be 100% clear that the agreement before you tonight is inappropriate, provides an unfair playing field, and provides exclusivity and benefit to Sturgis Falls and to Sturgis Falls alone. And I think council should be made aware that the initial agreement was actually introduced by staff at the January 4th Committee of the Whole meeting, where Sturgis initially attempted to try to monopolize and seek exclusive control over who can and can't receive event permits, who can and can't hold a liquor license, and try to impose gross revenue fees upon other nonprofits and for-profit entities. Included in the minutes from that January 4th meeting, a representative from Sturgis Falls stated directly to City Council, quote, Sturgis Falls doesn't want to see competition. So fortunately, the majority of the council at that January 4th meeting rejected that January agreement. And hopefully, I was hoping that would have been the end of any discussion about any type of exclusive, non-equitable agreement with Sturgis Falls. In February, Sturgis Falls again tried to submit an agreement to the city, but at the last minute, they requested to have that agreement pulled from the council agenda. The reason why it was pulled, because the staff recommendation was strongly worded to deny the agreement, and Sturgis knew it would not be approved by City Council. Additionally, I believe that staff memorandum, which was fully redacted to the public, may have been critical of not only the legality of the agreement, but I believe it also could be considered discriminatory in nature. So here we are now in March, and once again, Sturgis is trying to push another revised agreement through City Council at the last minute. 48 hours on a weekend simply does not provide adequate time for legal counsel representing any of these other entities or the public to review the new version of the agreement. And to me, the most troubling aspect of the agreement, besides being exclusive and unfair, is Section 6L, providing Sturgis Falls the right to unilaterally impose a 15% gross revenue upcharge or fee upon the firefighters Local 1366 and the North Shore Boat Club. And it states right in the agreement, failure to pay said amount to Sturgis Falls by July 15th shall be grounds to refuse to allow the firefighters dance to be held the following year. This is not only favoritism to Sturgis, but it appears to be discriminatory as well. Has the city discussed this with the firefighters in the North Shore Boat Club? And is the city aware, and are these other groups aware, that there are other nonprofit entities that would be glad to work with them to provide a liquor license and insurance at the actual cost rather than upcharging them 15% of gross revenues that Cedar
30 seconds remaining, sir.
is mandating? I'm sorry?
30 seconds remaining.
So I would ask that I receive the same consideration as prior speakers tonight and have a few more minutes, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Does council object to 2 additional minutes? Okay, you have 2 additional minutes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. So right in the agreement that you have tonight, the words exclusive and privilege are used several times in that agreement. The definition is pretty clear what privilege means, and you are providing that to one entity and one entity only. Again, what I'm asking is, the bottom line is, would the city approve the same agreement tonight with any other entity rather than Sturgis? And I believe that answer to the question would be a resounding no. With that, tonight I respectfully request first that I ask City Council to vote no on this agreement or any other agreement between the city and Sturgis, and ask that the Sturgis Fall celebration use the same park use and event permit process like every other entity. With the no vote, Sturgis Falls can simply turn around tomorrow and submit permit requests just like every other entity. Second, at a minimum, I would request that you defer any action on this agreement, as 48 hours on a weekend does not provide adequate time for any legal counsel representing these entities to do their due diligence. And last, I would request that City Council refer to a committee the entire process of getting items placed on the City Council agenda and the timing of the release of the full packet of information to City Council and the public at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. The system right now does not provide City Council or the public adequate time to thoroughly review what can be hundreds of pages of documents. It's not feasible to get outside legal counsel to review any of this in a 48-hour period, and it would make sense to me that the council materials be released a week in advance of the actual City Council meeting. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I would be glad to provide you my comments to the City Clerk for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Any other speakers for public comment tonight? None? And yes, sir. Statement address for the record, please.
Yes. I'm Brock Krejci, 2312 Cypress Avenue. I've also been a Commodore of the North Shore Boat Club several years ago. I find myself less on committees and more on just the list of people to phone up and call and help. Yes. Okay, gladly. Thanks. And thank you guys for your time tonight. I wanted to provide just a little bit of background on the history of this issue and probably just fill you guys in on why it may be coming out of nowhere. This is an agreement that was forced upon us. You know, my memory is not that great, but I'm going to say 12, 15 years ago. It's been some time that this agreement's been in place, and the North Shore Boat Club has been forced to work underneath this agreement, and it's merely because we've missed the notice that this would be up for a vote for renewal, and we were lucky enough to catch that this year that has got us, you know, here just to talk a little bit about it. I'm certainly a huge advocate of Sturgis Falls. I've enjoyed every part of it, from watching the parade to, you know, helping volunteer to run things. I always think that's a lot of fun with a small town. But I ask that you consider letting a separate entity run its own independent celebration. There's nothing wrong with beer and a band. It's on a Friday night, not a Saturday morning. And I'd ask that you at least strike paragraph L from the record and also give that consideration to the Jazz Festival. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other public speakers tonight? Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Deb Stoddard, Jay's wife, 228 Mary Hill, Cedar Falls.
Evening, Ms. Stoddard.
And I'm pretty nervous about this, but I've watched this whole thing play out for years. What I don't understand is these other people, if they don't need Sturgis Falls, why don't they choose another weekend? Why is Sturgis Falls weekend when the boat club wants to have the biggest event there? The firemen have many other weekends. Actually, the same with the plaza. There's a lot of other weekends to choose. If Sturgis Falls is going to continue to do these free events like the parade and that, they have to have some protection. Why would any of the concessions in Overman donate to, or not donate, but pay their 15% fee back to the organization if these other people don't have to pay? It just seems like they are riding the coattails. I often wonder too, what would happen at the Irish Fest if the Elks Club decided to have a band in their parking lot? Do you think that that would fly over there? I just, riding the coattails is all I can think of, and I don't understand why many of you council people don't understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stoddard. Yeah, only one opportunity, sir. Sure. So no, you're not able to speak. Unfortunately,
Can I respond?
Unfortunately not. One opportunity for public comment.
She did single me out, so I would like to respond to her comment.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
Any other speakers for public comment tonight?
None that have spoken before.
Okay. And so with that, I bring it back to council for council discussion. Councilor Harding?
I'll start with a thought. Yeah, tough situation. I think for me, this situation goes deeper than Sturgis, and I love Sturgis. I've ridden in the parade and played the saxophone there, and I played for the Jazz Kids. That was a lot of fun. I think for me, it goes to the question of whether the city should dictate business between entities and if we should have agreements like this. So I guess my question would be to staff is, what's the history of the agreement? Do we need the agreement? Why do we have the agreement? What does it provide the city? And why are we putting city time and taxpayer money into the agreement. I just want to understand what we get from it.
I believe when the agreement originated, which is many, many years ago, it used to be on 10-year terms, and recently it was on a 5-year term. This last year is on a 1-year term. But originally, years ago, it was to outline the use of the park areas, refuse collection, security during the event, those types of things. So I know the event's come a long ways and kind of moved locations over the years, but I think that's the reason why the original agreement came forward. As far as some of the other language in regards to the 15% firefighters dance, I know that was added at some point years ago. I do not have that exact year when that came into the contract, but I'm sure Mr. Stoddard would probably know that answer to that. But.
Could the items that are in the agreement be addressed in an event permit? Or are there aspects of it, aside from the firefighters dance, are there aspects of it that really require a separate agreement?
I would have to look through the agreement again, but in a sense, it probably could be clarified in an event permit.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember DeBeer.
Could you explain what difference there is in this particular agreement than what there was in prior agreements, other than the talks about title changes due to reorganization of the city? What other changes are in it?
So previously, the agreement was, I believe, from 2015 to 2020. And this last year, we updated it to just a 1-year agreement, in which just expired. But the language changes were due to the reorganization of the city, and also clarification on specific use areas, cleanup after the event, the timeline for that, when fencing could be set up prior to the event. Pretty minor changes in regards to those.
So it's basically the same agreement that we had 2 years ago?
Very similar to even those 10-year agreements, yep.
Okay. And this is a 2-year agreement?
Correct.
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank Jay Stoddard and his wife Deb and all the volunteers we've had over all the years. And I know nobody's trying to take away from that, but I've been pretty close to the tremendous amount of hard work that I've watched them do. And it's truly amazing. And the thing the city's going to have to think about is how to fund the Overman Park family things. And if there's going to be the jazz down there on Main, and I can see where the firemen, since they didn't have to pay and the firemen don't want to contribute, the city's going to have to step in and figure out how they're going to pay for it, because right now it's being funded with that 15%. I can't thank Jay, and it goes back to Rosemary and all of them who've worked so tremendously hard on Sturgis Falls. It makes it such a great event. And that Overman Park area is such a main draw. And the tremendous amount of hard work, the Marine Band, all the bands. And when Simon talked about the kids' jazz band, I've sponsored that for, I think, around 20 years. I love to watch the kids get up there and play their first solos in front of a big crowd with Michalacek. And these things are so great for our city. We have to be so careful with the Sturgis Falls celebration and how truly great that it is. We need to preserve it, and if the city needs to start to say, hey, everybody's going to pay a percentage or whatever they're going to do, we need to look at that. So if we just extend it for 1 year the way it is, these guys have to get started on their things, the different bands he showed and how important that is. And the Cedar Valley Jazz Basin was grandfathered in, and now downtown, and it's going to start to change. Things will change, but we always want, and I know as Steve spoke, and Bob Seymour, we want to keep it to be that great thing, but we're going to have to be a little bit careful so that everybody gets in and works on it. And I'm also a member of the boat club. But we've got to just protect the great celebration we have and these traditions in Cedar Falls. So if we just made it 1 year so he could move forward, we could get these things done, and then we'll have a discussion next summer on how things came, I don't think anybody would be opposed to that.
Thank you, Councilmember Cyrus. And Councilmember Cyrus noted that the statement was that the firefighters' dance didn't want to contribute. Mr. Houston, would you mind coming forward again and shed some light on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mayor Green. Yes, we would. We've never been asked. You know, this agreement got put into place several years ago. without really us being aware or being notified that it was going to affect our event. The Firefighters Dance has been a traditional Friday night kickoff of Sturgis Falls for over 45 years. And we've always run it, the North Shore Boat Club, in conjunction and a partnership with the local firefighters union, and we've shared the proceeds of it. And we've contributed to the events dramatically over the years. But at some point, Sturgis Falls Commission was able to get that contract done, and it was a 10-year deal that then went into a 5-year deal, and then went into a 2-year deal, and we've had to operate under it, or we couldn't have an event. And so, we've never been able to kind of catch that renewal date. So when you ask, well, has this changed? Is it something different? No, it's not anything different. It's just finally, we've been able to kind of catch it at the renewal time, and we're asking for you guys to take a look at it. And yes, we would be happy to help if we have our event and we're able to do it autonomously. We would be happy to sit down and discuss anything necessary to contribute part of our proceeds back to the celebration weekend. Happy to do that.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, sir. Councilmember Cruz.
Looking at the analytics of this, as I tend to do, there's got to be a contribution from the participants in the revenue-producing areas, such as selling beer, which is the primary thing, to the non-revenue-producing things. It's just an elementary thing. And the 15%, I like the percentage because if there's a situation where we got bad weather or what have you, 15% of a lower number or no number is no contribution. If the weather's gorgeous, we have 15% of a bigger number to cover bigger expenses such as garbage collection, porta potty pumping, more patrol. So there's variable costs that rise if there's bigger and bigger crowds. And you have to have revenue match your expenses. That's just a given in any organization and any function. So possibly in the future we could go with a flat rate plus a percentage, but to be able to adjust to the variables that we have no control of, such as the weather, there needs to be a percentage in there. And I think it's very important to have that. I don't think 15% is that out of line to cover the gross costs of Sturgis Falls. There has to be revenue. There has to be revenue coming in. As one speaker said, organizations could pick a different weekend and run their own event. If they're participating in Sturgis Falls and want to be in the Sturgis Falls weekend, there's the formula, and it's worked for 45 years or 35 years. I think 2 10-year contracts and a 5 and then maybe a 1. So it's very, very basic to me. Some comments about the city maybe taking over, and we've talked about that. I have with staff, and that might be a direction to go, but it's all nonprofit. If every organization is nonprofit, there's no money going in anybody's pocket to argue over. If we have a good event and lots of revenue from lots of beer being sold, that helps pay for the expenses, and the end dollars get contributed to the city in multiple ways, which we saw in a presentation 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. So I think it's appropriate. We can look at something new after a year if we want to amend this agreement to 1 year instead of 2. But if you look at the analytics of it, you have to have some revenue to pay for things that aren't being paid for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harding.
Yes, revenue must pass hands. It's obviously mutual it's a beneficially mutual, I should say, for these events to happen together. My hang up is that I strongly believe it's not the city's job to regulate this. Furthermore, it's taxpayers' dollars that are in this, and we should not be the controlling entity. I believe the city should remain neutral, have a permits process. So it's a philosophical thing, I guess, but that's my view.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dara.
Yeah, I would agree with Simon that it'd be best if the city could get out of this. What I find regrettable is we all agree that Sturgis is a wonderful event. It's been here for a long time, but these other events have been here as well. And I guess my question is, all well-intended people that want Cedar Falls to be successful, want this event to be successful. I had the impression that back in January, or whenever this conversation started, the entities had met and were this far from reaching some sort of agreement, and all of a sudden things changed. And I guess I'm confused by how we got from that to where we are now, and why the entities can't sit down and play well together. I mean, it's really not what this celebration is about, and it doesn't belong to any one group. It's the communities, and I really want to see some resolution here. And I guess I'd have like somebody to explain to me how it got off the tracks, because once again I was led to believe that the first proposal in January was going to be agreed on.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cruz.
I have a question, I guess, to staff, whoever can answer it. Several council members are saying taxpayer expense. My understanding is Sturgis pays the city for every dime of expense that the city has to put on the function. Is that correct, Director?
Yeah, it's all outlined in the agreement as far as refuse collection or anything like that.
So there is no cost to the city that's not paid for by Sturgis and the revenue that each of the entities contribute to Sturgis?
They pay for the staff time to work on the agreement and to work on everything, and all the effort we've put in mediating.
So Director Rodenbeck, I believe you.
No, they do not pay for staff. Now, there has been years when they've been able to financially afford that they have contributed back to the city for police overtime, public works overtime, but there is no set amount that we bill them every year for all of the staff time. But Director Stragi is correct in terms of refuse collection and that, then they pay that.
Again, I love Sturgis Falls. I have nothing against Sturgis Falls. It's just my philosophical belief that it's a slippery slope when the city gets into donating money to entities like this and dictating terms between other entities. It's my personal philosophy that we should remain neutral.
Thank you. And I don't want to lose Councilmember Dara's question from earlier about some of the history of it. If is that something to address as part of the vote tonight? Is that going to be dependent on that, or can that happen later?
Well, to me, it's more the process itself. If we can't resolve it now, as a couple other council members have said, I don't want to see us go through this again. Again, 3 different organizations doing great stuff. It's not coattailing, it's just working together and taking advantage of a great opportunity. And this kind of discussion shouldn't be happening in Cedar Falls. I mean, you guys know each other, you've worked together. The city's tried to be supportive, and I'm just confused as to where it went south and why we can't all play in the same sandbox together. And so whatever we decide tonight, I still agree with Dave, and we need to get together and get this figured out so this kind of discussion doesn't have to happen every year. It can be of mutual benefit for the whole community. Everybody can make money or lose it together equally, but come on, this doesn't feel right. And so I don't know, Ron or Jen or anybody, was I misinformed back in January that there were just a couple minor details and the agreements were, everybody was on board?
And Mr. Gaines?
Well, I'll try to give it a shot. The meeting that came in January was, there was an agreement that came forward and the council voted that down. So subsequently, the city arranged a meeting, and it was a virtual meeting that several members were there. Myself was there, Jennifer Rodenbeck, Chase Schrage, and Mayor Green, along with representatives from Sturgis Falls, Live to 9, and also Cedar Basin Jazz Festival. So had a first meeting, talked about, hey, we're gonna, everybody go gather some information, come back. Had a second meeting, got to the second meeting, and at the end of that second meeting, I think everybody was, as you had indicated, Mr. Dara, very, very close to what we thought was an agreement, and shortly after that, I think things kind of fell apart. I hope I characterized that correctly, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, the agreement, as I remember, moving forward, the plan was to have flat fees. So basically, like pay a cost, pay an expense in from those other groups as part of an affiliate status. And then that ended up kind of breaking down, and so went back to a percentage request instead. And that's as much as we had gotten on our end.
And so there's no, people can't reach agreement on those kinds of percentages and stuff, is that's where we're at? I mean,
Well, I think with the outcome of the last meeting, if I may, is with the two groups that they received their permits, and it's our understanding that they're still willing to work with Sturgis Falls and come up with some other type of monetary value to contribute to the celebration.
Yeah, my understanding is those groups recognize and appreciate the need to cover costs for especially the Kids Way, the parade, and other things that are the tough revenue drivers. But they just were not amenable to paying a percentage, like a 15% fee for whatever they take in.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Miller.
The need to, I think the contract years have changed. It was 10 years, 5 years. This was 2 years. Is there any specific reason why it's set at 2 years?
That was discussed back in January with the Sturgis Falls Board, but the history behind shortening the year span is just due to the fact, Sturgis used to be in the Island Park area, and then it moved to tourists, and then now it's over at Gateway. So things change, and if you try to lock into a 10 or a 5-year contract, things change year to year. So we shortened it up to the 1 year previously, and now it's before you for a 2-year, in which was agreed upon by the Sturgis Falls Board.
Sure.
Thank you. Attorney Rogers, were there legal concerns about a 5-year as well?
There wasn't, that there might have been a potential requirement for public hearing on tying up the parks for that long period, but not an insurmountable problem with 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Miller.
A couple things. I don't, to echo everybody else's sentiment, I hate that we're in this position to have to try and decide this. It's unfortunate all the way around. In terms of, I think one of the callers' points was that Sturgis is getting special treatment here. I don't see it that way. I think a contract is necessary with Sturgis Falls because of the magnitude of what that's become over 30 years, 40 years. There's no other event in Cedar Falls that happens like Sturgis Falls. So a special contract is warranted, in my opinion. To Councilman Harding's point, that was part of my opposition with other events and having staff manage the monetary side of that. I don't like it at all. And I guess what I'd like to see is number 6 here, I believe, the 15%, the management of the boathouse and the firefighters dance and all that, I'd like to see that removed. I would like to see this change to a 1-year contract with the hope that we come back to the table next year with an understanding of how this can work in a positive light, and I certainly hope we're not sitting here making the same decision next year.
So, Councilor Miller, do I understand you'd want to amend the document that's before us?
Yes.
Okay, so that's section, is that L, something L?
Section L, but then as well,
6L, I believe, right?
6L.
There's a location variable in there too for the boathouse, I believe, that needs to be addressed.
In Island Park.
In Island Park.
In the first paragraph. Possible idea, if we amend the agreement before coming back to it next year, I would hope that we.
Why would I?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just for procedurally, since we're on a motion request, we have item 6L that is recommended or motioned to have stricken from the document, and also to, what was the second part of that? Island Park, the note to that.
Limit 1 year.
And then make it 1 year for this term. So is there a second for that?
I'll second it for
Okay.
conversation.
Seconded by Harding. So now, yeah, open for discussion for the amendment.
My question would be multiple-fold, but, or multifold. I would hope maybe this could be a goal session topic, possibly, so that we could hash it out, because I would want some information from staff as to how we could possibly do it without an agreement, or why the agreement fully is necessary. What couldn't be covered with an event permit, I guess. As to this, I would ask Attorney Rogers, is there anything else in this contract, if we amended it and took out 6L, that would affect any other entity or affiliate groups going forward for this year for Sturgis Falls?
If you're referencing a monetary obligation, then that's the only provision I'm aware of that has a monetary obligation. Now, the contract still includes exclusive use of some public parks, which is perfectly fine. So that would have a potential effect. But as far as monetary obligation, I think that's the only section.
Okay, so there is a motion to amend, and I do, just for the sake of,
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question, though?
oh, yes, please.
If you remove 6L, does that mean that those groups would be able to use that park and pay nothing to help with the Sturgis Falls events because it takes out the 15%? So they would be able to, they've already got the permit, they could hold their event and give absolutely nothing to help the Sturgis celebration. Is that correct, if you take out 6L?
That's my understanding, is there'd be no legal obligation to do so, but we did hear from Mr. Husum stating his amenability to do that.
Yeah, but we have nothing in writing. I mean, it's just.
Correct, and that's the same with the Live to 9 event and the Cedar Basin Music Festival event.
Do they have a permit already?
Mr. Mayor?
Those two events do, and the firefighter one, of course, does not yet. That wouldn't have one.
Didn't you approve them at the last meeting?
Live to 9 we did, and the Cedar Basin Music Festival we did, but the firefighters dance, of course, we have not yet.
So just as a question, wouldn't it be better to just amend the contract, as Marcus said, for 1 year, but leave 6L in for this year, and then when they bring it back next year, they could try to work it out to see if they want to remove 6L or not?
So that would be a vote down on the current motion. So that's how you would accomplish that.
Amending the motion?
And that wasn't what I was after.
Right.
My intent is to remove the city's involvement in whatever the agreement ends up being, with the hope, by all means, that everybody works together here. I don't think anybody wants to take away from the Sturgis Falls celebration in any way, but I got to think that we can get to middle ground to where everybody's throwing down if they are having an event on the Sturgis Falls weekend.
Yeah, well, and so just a moment, just to be clear, what that motion would do is take paragraph 1, where it says Sturgis Falls celebration will have exclusive use of the following city parks during the celebration weekend for each year of this agreement. One item in there is Island Park, and it also talks about, this includes the Island Park Beach House. So that would strike those items on there. And then further down, under 6L, that would change this item. And I will read it because I want to make sure that people understand what they're voting on here. It says, the celebration shall include the firefighters dance held on the Friday night of celebration weekend in the Beach House Shelter in Island Park or Police Officers Memorial Park. The firefighters local 1366, which hosts the dance, shall pay 15% of its validated gross sales on beer and wine cooler sales to FSC. Failure by the firefighters local 1366 to pay said amount to the SFC by July 15, immediately following the celebration weekend, shall be grounds for FSC to refuse to allow the firefighters dance to be held during the following year's celebration weekend. If the SFC shows an overall profit for the celebration weekend, SFC agrees to donate to the city fire department an amount up to 15% of gross sales from the dance that are paid to SFC. The expenditure of these monies shall be for equipment purchases for the city fire department. SFC shall be notified in advance of such equipment purchases for which these funds shall be expended. So this would strike that entire paragraph.
Mayor?
So just to be clear. Yes, Councilor Miller?
And absolutely, and I think if you go back to that, if the firefighters are given Sturgis Falls 15%, but then it's specified here that that's going back to the firefighters. It isn't going to be used for those events,
If they're-
potentially, that don't bring any revenue.
After the expense of Sturgis is paid for, though.
Right, so there would be something into Sturgis initially, and then the rest, it's like the remainder would go back.
portion.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Zires, we haven't heard
Could
from
we
you in
get a
while.
comment from Steve Hewsome or somebody from there, what they want to contribute to that? Because his word would be good.
I wouldn't be comfortable with having them commit themselves tonight on that,
Mr. Mayor?
because he would have to go through a board discussion as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
You hit on the nail on the head there, exactly why the verbal discussion that you guys had with the staff didn't set into a permanent agreement, because everybody had to go back to their boards to get approval and then come back forward, and there was disagreement on how to move forward. So you hit the nail on the head why this perceived agreement never materialized. Okay? To Councilman Harding's point about staff time, everything that happens in the city takes staff time, whether it's new streets, what have you, garbage collection routes, everything. So to say that staff time shouldn't be used to put on Sturgis Falls, when the fact that Sturgis uses the boathouse, which is a city function, or city property, or all the other streets and parks and public safety officers and everything that gets involved, staff has to be involved because it's in our city. So I don't find that really as offensive to say that Sturgis is using staff time and it's not reimbursed, because it's just part of what we do as.
I just meant in the terms of extra.
Please don't interrupt. Yes, Councilor.
So, but again, if the organizations that want to break away from paying 15%, which I explained earlier, is variable based on beer sales, how is going to be any assurance that the Sturgis organization are going to get their fixed cost for the kids' way and all the tents and the porta potties and the garbage and paying back the city for all the barricades and all the things that the city has to pay for? That's an immense dollar amount. So to say that, oh, I'll pitch in $2,000 when if we have a good weekend and there's thousands and thousands of dollars of beer sales, 15% is a variable cost expenditure by an organization to cover the variable expenses of the city. I think that's very appropriate. When you look at the analytics of running an organization, balance sheet and so on, that just works. So I think it's detrimental to take this out. To Councilman DeVere's point, a one-year agreement would be appropriate, leaving 6L in there. And then we could figure out whether the city needs to take more, set up a generic contract and everybody can participate and bid on different parts. But what we're approving now is essentially what's been there for 35 years.
Councilmember Harding.
I just have a different philosophical view, that's all. I just want it to be permit-based and follow the process that we have laid out, that make it simpler. My question to staff would be, can Sturgis function perfectly well, and can we do this without an agreement? Do we need an agreement, or will it work with the event permit process that is it too large? Do we need an agreement?
I'm not sure if that's really a staff answer,
Right.
or is that an answer from Sturgis Falls? In other words, I understand we could issue a permit and we could put stipulations on, like have to remove their stuff out of the park in 14 days. I mean, we could put some of those stipulations on the permit. I think, again, the better question is, though, is just as a couple people have indicated, it's such a large event, and for them to kind of have some assurance that they have those parks reserved every year is probably why they wanted to have an agreement with the city, not I have to rush in there, first come, first serve on the permit. I have some assurance I have those. So I think that question might be better directed at the agencies versus the staff.
Yeah, and there's certainly value in the stability of a multi-year agreement, I would think as well.
Fair enough.
I believe Councilmember Dunn wanted to say something.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Dunn, I can't see you at all, so I apologize. I can only see a giant Kevin Rogers.
Okay.
It's not your fault, Mr. Rogers.
I I agree with Councilman Harding and so many others that have said, I don't know why we would want, I don't want to hurt Sturgis Falls. This isn't about, this to me is about fairness and how we got to the point where, because the people at the boat club and the firefighters organization, those are volunteers as well, and they have expenses. I know there's bathrooms at the boathouse, but there's porta potties and they have garbage and refuse fees and things like that. I guess the main thing is I hope that these organizations that are all involved here recognize, can you imagine Sturgis Falls without a parade? I would hope that you would all say no. Can you imagine Sturgis Falls without the Kids Way tent? I would hope you would all say no. I hope that we understand that the purpose of Sturgis Falls, I would assume when it was created 40-some years ago, was to celebrate our city. So this, to me, is not trying to hurt. It's not the intention. But I do wonder, how did we get to this point where we are not allowing all people who want to celebrate and all organizations who want to celebrate to do so under their own accord, if I'm using that word right? So I very much agree with Councilman Harding and his statement. And it's, I hope these folks can all come together, and this doesn't have to be debated year after year, because it is, no, I don't think there's a single council person or a person in our city that would want to hurt the organization. And it's not about that for me. It's about how did we get here, and it's about fairness.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
One thing I always think about is what about if the Sturgis Falls celebration said, we're not going to have a parade and we're not going to have Overman Park. And they provide the funds for Overman Park and the parade through selling beer tickets over there at Gateway Park. So when you all of a sudden say, well, you have to bear the burden of Overman Park and the parade and all the other things, but nobody else really has to, what if they came and they said, well, we're just going to have our Gateway Arena and we're not going to pull a permit for Overman Park? Now that would truly be a sad day. And I'm always a guy that looks to the extremes, and that could possibly happen because it's a tremendous amount of work. I know they raised $60,000 to pay for that Kids Way tent. All these other things. And I know there are others in town who will probably pick up when Jay finally retires, and we're getting probably close, not to say Jay's old, but there'll be a time when he'll have to turn it over to somebody, and that time could come. But this is one of the things in the extremes that worries me, that the free events, which are paid for completely by the beer sales tickets over in Gateway Park, and I know that the downtown jazz is going to contribute. I talked to one of them down there, and I'm sure they will. So we got to worry about that extreme. When you say, hey, it's everybody's free event, well, the burden is placed on the Sturgis Falls celebration. So that's just something to think about. Thank you.
Real quick, it doesn't benefit the other entities for Sturgis to go away. It's so they would.
Don't you see?
Exactly.
Can I discuss with Simon?
Well,
No, you can't.
I guess what I'm saying is, everybody wants Sturgis Falls. It's horrible if that goes away, of course. In the parade, we all love that. The question is, I guess I'm looking at it differently, is it the city's job to dictate that and to set that agreement? And that's where I have the issue. I don't believe it's the city's job to manage and do and say 15% between entities and do all this. That's where I differ. I want to support Sturgis Falls. I don't mind giving them reservations to those parks and doing all that. I just don't want to dictate the money part.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Sires, I didn't mean to call you out personally. It's just for a discussion. It has to be basically broadcast. So if you want to comment and reply, certainly you're
No,
welcome.
I understand.
Okay. All right. So with that, we're on the amendment right now. And that amendment was to strike item L, or 6L, from the agreement to change to a one-year term contract. And then also, we would need to pull out mentions of the Island Park Beach House. So this would be a voice vote in order to add these changes to the document, at which point we'll go back and have the opportunity to vote on the final document itself.
Mr. Mayor,
So yes, Councilmember Cruz?
could we separate the 2-year vote and the removing 6L?
Would anyone in council object to that? Sounds fair, like it's for the 1-year
The
agreement?
1-year vote first?
Yep. So would any council member object to voting on the amendment first to do the 1 year?
Make a motion to amend
Well,
the amendment?
amend me the amendment? Okay. Oh, goodness, this is scary.
Would it be Councilmember Miller's motion?
I don't know if, Mr.
trying to
Rogers,
think through-
does the original have to amend the amendment, or can another member amend the amendment?
Another member can.
Can you repeat that,
But you
please?
can separate the question too, Mr. Mayor.
That's what I mean, separate the question.
Split the motion.
Okay. So we're going to split it then?
No, it's been requested to separate there's multiple items in the amendment motion, and there's been a request to separate those items, and Mayor could do that.
Oh, that's right. That doesn't require a vote. Okay, thank you. So we will split then. And
Did I just for future reference, that's your call? Is that what he's saying?
if it's just splitting the question.
Yep, okay.
So what we'll vote on first, just a hand vote, is to amend the contract to change it from the current 2-year to just being a 1-year. So, and then they'll take it back to the second amendment. So are all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so this does go into a 1-year, and that takes us to the second amendment, which was the removal of item 6L, the Island Park Beach House references, and I think that's it at this point. So any further discussion on that amendment? Okay, so again, we're only voting on the amendment, not on the final approval. So all in favor of this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hey.
Aye.
Okay, so I'll need a show of hands. So raise your hand if you are aye. So I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes with Councilmember Dunn. And those nay, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. So 4 voting aye, 3 voting nay. That does pass into being part of the amendment for striking 6L from this document and the Island Park Beach House reference. So that takes us back to this amended document now. Is there any further discussion from council on the document as amended?
Just one question for Kevin Rogers, because I couldn't quite hear your answer when you answered before. As the document is now amended, would it affect any affiliate or other entities, or does the document now just really pertain to Sturgis Falls cleanup and those parks that they get exclusive rights to?
I believe what you stated is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And this is slightly different from many of the things that come before council, where if this is approved, it still has to go back to the Sturgis Falls Committee for their consideration and approval. So it's not a done deal, and it will have to then come back. Well, actually, if they approve, as I understand it, we're able to sign off on our end. It'd be up for Sturgis Falls to sign off on theirs. So,
They
Councilmember
not already
DeBerg?
signed off on the
That was
document?
somewhat my question, was the Sturgis Falls has already signed off on the contract that's in our agenda. So,
Well, we're changing it.
but you're changing it, so we don't know whether Sturgis Falls would even approve it then.
Correct.
Okay.
And that would have to go before the board as well. The other option would be just to vote down the entire contract and then go back into discussions. So at least this gives, as I understand it, for Attorney Rogers, let me know if I'm off here, but my understanding of a change to this, as by amending this contract, we're bringing back forward basically a counter proposal to Sturgis Falls that they can either agree to or disagree to. Is that correct?
Right, they didn't submit this language for agreement, so that's not what their offer was.
Right. Okay. So is that clear? Yes, Councilor Miller?
Thanks for validating that. I appreciate it. And I just want to reiterate how important it is, I think, to these other groups out here that are having an event during Sturgis Falls, how important it is that we find an agreement moving forward here. We can make this work. I have to believe we can find a way to make this work. And we keep going back to a percentage. I don't know how that plays out, but understanding that we've already approved a permit for Live to 9 down there with no obligation, I hope that they're involved as well moving forward. So.
And just to be clear, I'm appreciating that all the actors in here have the best intentions. There's no concern about that. It's just the details of how we get to where we want to be. So any other discussion for council before a vote? So it's been motioned and seconded with the item as amended, which is the contract pulling item, or without item 6L, or the Island Park Beach House, and as a one-year contract. So it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that does pass as amended, and we'll go back to the Sturgis Falls Committee for their consideration. And with that, that takes us over to new business under the consent calendar, which these are items that will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member wish to pull an item 6 through 9? Seeing none. And does anyone from the public wish to pull an item 6 through 9?
Jim Skane does.
Okay, so Mr. Skane, which item would you like to pull, sir?
I'd like to pull 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
And and I appreciate your acknowledging that the city administrator drafts the agenda. But
Yes,
6
sir.
and 7 are the one I want to comment on.
So items 6 through 7, and 7. And so I will read item 8 and 9, and then we'll go back to 6 and 7. So item 8 is receiving and filing the 2020 annual report for several commissions. And item 9 is approving applications for beer permits and liquor licenses. Is there a motion to approve these items?
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that passes and brings us back to item 6, which is receiving and filing the work session minutes of March 1st, 2021, relative to the mayor and city administrator roles. Is there a motion to approve this?
So move.
Second.
The motion and seconded. Mr. Skane, you had a question or comment on this item, sir?
Yes, I have always been confused as to what it means to receive and file, because every time there's a work session and every time there's a committee of the whole session, those are brought as receive and file. What does that mean? Does that mean that it's eligible to be put on the agenda for a council meeting?
Yes, sir, I think I can answer that. For receiving and filing, those are a record of the minutes. Every meeting we have a minute taker. And so that it just gives us a record or a reflection of what occurred in that meeting, what was discussed. At a work session, there's no final vote. It's just sometimes we build consensus to try to find a way forward for future action. And then for committee of the whole, sometimes there's a motion that comes out of it, like was with the the Main Street design study tonight. Council will give an indication or a preference through a voice vote, and so that's recorded in the minutes as well. And by voting on these to receive and file, it just is a vote to enter that into the official record as an accurate reflection of what transpired in the meeting. And it's not an appropriate time to debate the merits of those items themselves. So hope that answers the question. And so with that, any other discussion or questions from council? Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded, and all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes. And then for item 7, Mr. Skane, did that cover that same question about just receive and file, sir? Or did you have something else as well?
You'll need to unmute.
Okay, so Mr. Skane, we can't hear you just yet.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now, fine, sir.
Yes. You answered the question, and I appreciate the answer because I didn't want it to be that it meant that the council had in some way approved of it. So you answered the question.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So it's been motioned and seconded, and if there's no further council discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that passes as well. That brings us out of the consent calendar and over into the resolution calendar, which the following items are acted on by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. So does council wish to pull any item from 10 to, I've lost my spot, 10 to 21? Seeing none from council, does anyone from the public wish to pull an item from 10 to 21?
Jim Skane?
Okay, Mr. Skane, which would you like to pull, sir?
Yes, I'd like to pull 15.
Okay, 15.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So we'll pull item 15. I'll read the remainder. So, here we are. So item 10 is a resolution levying a final assessment for costs for the city to clean up a property. 11 is resolution authorizing execution of a service products agreement with UNI and the GeoTree Center for 360 imagery. Look forward to seeing the results of that. Item 12 is resolution approving certificate of completion and accepting the work of Envision Architecture for the public safety facility. 13 is a resolution approving the certificate of completion and accepting the work of Peters Construction for that public safety facility. 14 is a resolution approving the receipt of public improvements, right, for Pheasant Hollow 7th edition. 16 is a resolution of support for a grant application to the Blackhawk County Gaming Commission for the Cedar River Recreation Project. 17 is a resolution approving and authorizing an agreement with IDEA for the Community Development Block Grant relative to the CARES Act. And then 18 is a resolution approving an agreement for a federally funded project with the Cedar Falls School District for CDBG funds. 19 is a resolution approving execution of a recipient agreement for the Ethnic Minorities of Burma Advocate and Resource Center, EMBARK, and that's as a community development block grant. 20 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution for an agreement for exceptional persons for a CDBG block grant fund with the CARES Act. So, and 21 is resolution setting April 5th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing for a private development agreement with Stone and Terrace for the rehabilitation of 108 East 4th Street. Is there a motion to approve those items minus 15?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and seconded. This requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
We missing any?
I think Councilmember Dara had an issue with his voting box. Can we just revote?
Yes, we'll restart the vote then.
I'd be okay with that.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So item 15 is a resolution approving and accepting the contract and bond of K. Cunningham Construction Company for the Downtown Streetscape and Reconstruction Project, Phase 2. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
The motion and seconded. And Mr. Skane, you had a comment or question on this item, sir?
Yes, I do. I would like to have more information as to what part of the downtown project this covers, like which streets, and also I would like to know what is the cost of this part of the project if you're bonding.
Okay, thank you, sir. We can do that for you. So for the streets that are affected by this, Director Shaggy, could you provide some detail and then the cost as well?
Sure. So this project will involve the east section of 3rd Street, which would be from Main to State. It will be the reconstruction of 3rd as well as the parkade area. It will also be 4th Street from State to Washington, which will involve the reconstruction of 4th as well as the parkade sidewalk area. And additionally, West 5th Street from Washington to Main, the restoration of that street as well as the sidewalk parkade area. And then also the Main Street parkade from 3rd to 6th. And the cost of the construction, the low bid was right at about $2.4 million.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions or comments from council on this? All right, so it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Brings us over to bills and payroll, or excuse me, bills and claims. So item 22, is there a motion to approve bills and claims?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Then this requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Tonight, do we have any council referrals? Yes, Councilmember Cruz?
I don't know if it's so much a referral, but we've been having a lot of work sessions because of visioning and various things that are going on in the city. I'd like to see it standard practice that work sessions be recorded so we can review them. The public and council and other people don't have a chance to participate. So to have work sessions able to be pulled up at, when I need to or when I want to look at the background discussion to see how things evolved, I think it's very critical that we have work sessions reviewed because we're looking at some very big topics that affect the direction of the city. So it's very important.
So there's I guess a motion to change a practice, or I know we are recording the city council work sessions, or at least we have been.
But the planning and zoning had multiple on downtown zoning changes and visioning, and to not know as a council member what was discussed and how it was debated by planning and zoning, and then then all of a sudden we get thrown in at the end of it. I think it's important. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just a recording that we push a button and boom, it's recorded.
So I would take that as a motion, not for a sending to a committee or to a group, but just a council desire to do that. If there's no objection to that, I do have concerns about all work sessions being recorded. I know for the city council, it does make sense, especially for members who can't attend. If we start opening it up, I do have concerns about planning and zoning being recorded or any other session being recorded, what that sort of involves at the staff level,
If I could clarify
the time
that.
involved.
I would just motion to have planning and zoning work sessions because
Okay.
you're changing the framework of how the city's operating with zoning in that regard. So that's a
Okay.
pretty high-level topic in my mind.
So there's a motion on the floor to record or require the recording of planning and zoning work sessions. Is there a second? It's motion and seconded. Open it for council discussion.
I have a question. I'm okay with it. The question would be, so we currently are recording council, so does this need a referral, or can we just have a council directive to staff or ask them, staff, would it take a lot of work to record work sessions from planning and zoning?
No, we can do that, work sessions from planning and zoning. Now, if you get too broad, I agree with the mayor. So, for instance, if we're trying to record all of the sessions that the planning would have for visioning in downtown or meetings that we have with the property owners, it really limits us to locations where we can go and some of those things. But for just work sessions, yes, we can do that for planning and zoning.
Okay. And are the planning and zoning work sessions in here at the dais?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so that makes it a lot simpler to be able to record. Good, well, I guess I shouldn't be getting into things where we're discussing, since it's not on the agenda to do this. It sounds like like council's okay with the idea, generally.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Miller?
Is this to talk through the variables, or are we considering making the change here? And I guess this goes back to what we've talked about several times about giving the council a heads up so we have time to consider a change like this. I mean, at first glance, yeah, absolutely, put the work sessions online or whatever, but there could be implications that we're not thinking through here. And for myself, I would like the opportunity to consider that before sitting here right now to say, okay, we're going to do this to P&Z without consulting with P&Z potentially or whatever. So just wanted to make a point.
Sure, and an option could be to motion or to amend to refer it to committee so that we have more time to discuss.
I agree with Councilman Miller.
Attorney Rogers, can you offer any insight on this of an appropriate way forward?
It could be, I'm not comfortable with council acting on this. It wasn't on the agenda, but it could be a referral to staff to study the feasibility or referral to committee for a report.
Okay, so I'm going to call the original motion out of order, and my fault for kind of engaging it. With that said, would there be a motion to refer this to staff for study? Yes, that's probably the safest way to move forward. Okay.
And to clarify, I'm not interested in charrettes and all the other things, just the main, when you really get to the nuts and bolts about discussing city codes and ordinances and zoning and all that should be recorded so we can go back and reference it.
Okay, so are you making that motion then?
Yes.
Okay, so Councilmember Cruz has made a motion to refer this to staff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, so all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that passes. I didn't hear Councilmember Dunn on that, though.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. So that will be referred to staff then, and I apologize for my parliamentary error there. Any other referrals tonight? Okay, seeing none, then council updates.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember
Just a
Dare,
real
please.
quick update. I think I sent to all of you an email about the Human Rights Task Force and where we're at this point. I don't believe we had necessarily nailed things down, but basically we've had a couple really good meetings. We want to meet again, but we've not identified members of the task force at this point because we feel it's better for us to identify areas of focus so that when we, at least initial talking points, so that when we get people to the meeting, we've got some specifics to talk from. So it's going to be a few days before we get the names to you, but it's been real positive, and I'm looking forward to some good things happening. It's going to be a long haul.
All right. And thank you very much, Councilmember Dara, for being willing to chair that group, and for Councilmember Dunn for vice chairing on that. It's probably one of the most important things we're working on this year.
Excuse me, Mayor, and we should thank Tony Babcock from staff, who's doing all the organizing.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Babcock, if you're listening, thank you as well. And any other updates? Okay, seeing none, then open it for any staff updates.
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay, well then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
The delay.
Thanks for the fantastic discussion tonight.